The Jimmy Butler fiasco is getting heated. If you thought the situation between the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler were bad before, then wait till you hear this. The Miami Heat locker room does not want Jimmy to return after he got suspended, but a source close to Butler says things are about to get even worse because Jimmy Butler hasn't even really started in terms of his reaction to the situation. Hey, what's happening, everyone? This is Swish Culture. Since the dawn of time, three things have been certain: death, taxes, and Jimmy Butler forcing his way out of an NBA team. He had problems with the Chicago Bulls, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now Pat Riley in the Miami Heat. Things are not looking good, yet somehow multiple teams, including the Phoenix Suns, are throwing their hat in the ring to get Jimmy buckets on a contender. The Warriors have said they might not be interested, but what are the chances they take a swing at Jimmy? Will he actually leave the Miami Heat? With sources saying they don't want him back in the locker room and Butler going 2 for 2 on busting the door down on his way out, it's not looking good. Obviously, Jimmy will have a response for all this, so let's take a look and find out what's really happening in Miami. Before we get into all that, be sure to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content on the planet. Now get ready. You're about to get Jimmy Butler is no stranger to controversy. In fact, I'm about to coin this the Jimmy cycle. Butler joins a team, challenges all the players to make sure he's top dog, criticizes the players and ownership for him being the best player on the team, then forces his way out. He was originally drafted by the Chicago Bulls in the second round of the 2011 NBA draft with the 30th overall pick. The Bulls back then picked Norris Cole, whom they selected in the first round with the 28th overall pick. Now that pick is interesting because Cole was traded on draft night in a 3-team trade that saw him land in Miami after going through, you guessed it, the Minnesota Timberwolves, foreshadowing the path that Jimmy Butler would take throughout his NBA career. So why did Jimmy leave the Bulls just 2 years after signing a 5-year $90 million contract? And yeah, I know it doesn't sound like much today, but for perspective, that same year, LeBron James signed a 2-year $47 million deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So this was a huge contract at the time. Well, after criticizing the motivation of the young Bulls, the Bulls general manager Gar Forman got involved and responded to Jimmy's antics, saying it was unacceptable. Butler, not to be outdone, doubled down 2 days later with this statement: "I like it, I'm sorry, but I like controversy. At the end of the day, we're all we've got. I don't regret anything. Like it or not, I'm me." This further the Bulls management, and they benched Butler in his game versus the Miami Heat later that day. But Jimmy still didn't back down. When Butler did come on the floor, he shot just 1 for 13, had 2 assists and 3 turnovers in 33 minutes. His absolute worst game of the season. Of course, the Bulls lost to the Miami Heat, getting booed off the floor in the process. How's that for foreshadowing? Best believe Pat Riley was taking notes. With this souring of relations with the organization, he was able to finish the season, but was first out of the trading blocks the following summer, along with the 16th pick in the draft for Levine, who was recovering from an ACL injury at the time, Chris Dunn, who played poorly the prior year as a rookie, and an actual rookie in Lauri Markkanen. Now obviously Markkanen panned out in becoming an all-star, as did Zach LaVine, but at the time, the trade was a bit of an eye-popping deal. So are the Bulls interested in a trade acquiring Butler? Absolutely not, but another of his old teams might be interested in a deal with the Heat. So the deal that the Bulls made on Butler had started to look good fairly quickly after the trade, which sent Jimmy Butler to the Minnesota Timberwolves, considering he didn't hang around too long. And now Mark Stein, who's an NBA insider, has reported that a number of teams are willing to facilitate a blockbuster trade involving Jimmy Butler being traded from the Heat. One of those teams happens to be the Minnesota Timberwolves. Why would the Timberwolves want to be a part of a trade that involves Jimmy Butler after what happened back in 2018 when Butler demanded a trade out of Minnie? If you recall, Jimmy Butler yet again questioned whether or not guys like Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, among others, were really interested in playing winning basketball.
Not only did Jimmy Butler take the third stringers and beat the starters, but dudes are walking around laughing about it. No wonder he wants the hell out of there.
He was overheard screaming at both players saying, "They ain't They soft. He also openly challenged the entire organization, not just his teammates, but coaches and team executives alike. NBA insider Woj dropped a tweet stating that during a scrimmage, Jimmy Butler yelled at Scott Layden saying, "You need me. You can't win without me." He spared no one. All this happened in the beginning of his second season with the Timberwolves. So now to hear that the Timberwolves are somehow involved raises a few eyebrows. But hold on to your Timbers because they're not really in it for Butler. Due to the new CBA rules which limit certain transactions mostly relating to teams that are at or above the tax apron, teams have to rely on 3, 4, or even 5-way trades to make deals like trading Butler work on the books. The motivation for the Timberwolves in a deal like this could be to move on from newly acquired Julius Randle, who it's rumored that the team is aggressively shopping as he's not been a great fit for the Timberwolves. Considering Randle's contract, he's an expensive player they'd expect a good return on. Alternatively, they'd potentially move on Jaden McDaniels, but this Jimmy Butler saga could result in a power move for Minnesota. Either way, hey, who thought JB would be the Timberwolves' gift that keeps on giving? After heading to the 76ers, Butler appeared to have less drama surrounding his situation. It could also be the fact that he only played 55 games with the team to finish up the year, and things likely wouldn't have gone any better.
Somebody told me a main reason that I didn't go back was because somebody asked, "Can you control Jimmy? If you can control Jimmy, we would think about having him back." I was like, "You don't got to worry about it. Shit, can't nobody control me."
So once free agency hit, he agreed to do a sign and trade, which would send him down south.
To tell you the truth, it's the culture that I hear about all the time. You know, the work that you put in every single day.
So now that Jimmy is in Miami, what happened? He actually tried to recruit Joel Embiid to come along with him. Kind of interesting since Embiid is always injured and has never played more than 67 games in a season, a feat he only achieved once and doesn't seem like he'll ever achieve again. Now being that Jimmy chose to go to Miami, you'd think that's where the drama would end. Obviously, that's not the case considering a Jimmy Butler trade seems imminent. How did we even get here? Prior to the Heat superstar arriving in Miami, the last time the franchise went to the NBA Finals was with LeBron James in 2014, where they lost to the Spurs. Jimmy not only took them there in 2020, but again in 2023. The first NBA title shot in 6 years for the Heat saw Jimmy Bucket suit up alongside first-time All-Star Bam Adebayo, a young rookie Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, a former Division III recruit, and veteran locker room doorknob Jay Crowder. Unable to knock off the Lakers featuring Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they lost the series 4-2. This is important because this puts the Heat among the top teams as contenders. What happens next would be crucial to what's happening in Heat culture today. The Heat tried to retool in 2022, even finishing with the best record in the Eastern Conference. Unfortunately, they lost to the Celtics in 7 games. Now, it's not so much the fact that they lost, but why they did. From the first trip to the finals and throughout the rest of Jimmy's tenure, the Miami Heat, by all accounts, failed to pair Jimmy Butler with a second star. Now, while one could argue that Bam was an all-star in 2020 and should probably be enough to help Jimmy by 2022, a lot has changed in the league, and teams such as Boston, with 4 or more players capable of leading the team on any given night, have proven that in order to win a championship, you're going to need more than 1 or 2 guys to get the job done. Things got even worse as reportedly the Celtics, who were even better than Miami at the time, became aggressive in acquiring pieces like Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. The Miami Heat shocked Butler when they brought in Thomas Bryant and Josh Richardson in response to the Celtics. This drew the ire of Butler because the Heat were clearly not interested in making the moves necessary to secure Miami their first championship in over a decade. At 35 years old, it'll become increasingly difficult to win a championship, and considering he doesn't have much help, his window is closing and the team is focusing on players like Tyler Hero and Bam instead of trying to acquire a true superstar alongside him. It's understandable why Jimmy would want out. So, how did we get to a point where the Heat is handing out multiple suspensions as punishment for a player that was openly recruiting other superstars such as Embiid and especially Dame Lillard to the team? While it started with the Heat ignoring Jimmy's pleas for help in getting them a championship, the beginning of the 2023-24 season paints a vivid picture. Lillard wanted to go to Miami to play alongside Jimmy. Jimmy was hoping to get Lillard to play alongside him, and it was simply up to the Heat to send the necessary pieces to the Trailblazers to get Dame time to Miami. Pat Riley, the Heat's GM, put out the most pathetic trade offer for a superstar that it wasn't just the Blazers who thought that the Heat weren't serious. In talks between Riley and Cronin, the Heat apparently offered Tyler Hero 2 first-round picks and either Kyle Lowry or Duncan Robinson. For perspective, the trade that the Blazers accepted from the Bucks involved a third team and netted them Drew Holiday, a star in his own right from the Bucks, DeAndre Ayton, a former first overall pick, and Toumani Camara via the Suns. A Bucks 2029 first-round pick and 2 first-round pick swaps in 2028 and 2030, also with the Bucks. The problem wasn't that Miami didn't have enough assets. They did. They just weren't offering it to the Blazers. Now maybe Miami was onto something because at the moment, Dame is scoring only 1 more point per game than Hero, 2 more assists while having 1 less rebound on worse efficiency. Hero is even shooting over 40% from distance, which is slightly higher than Dame's shooting. For all intents and purposes, their stats are about equivalent. Hero has also played at the highest level in an NBA Finals, much higher than Dame, who's only made it to the conference finals, so he knows what it's like to be in a high-stakes game. It was too late, however, as last season there was a much bigger discrepancy in the performances between Hero and Lillard. Butler likely viewed last season as a lost opportunity as Hero averaged 17-5 in 5 games when the Heat went down 4-1 to the Celtics. Meanwhile, Dame put up 31-5 in 4 games as the Bucks lost to the Pacers. Rumors started churning over the summer as the Warriors sought to get Jimmy away from Miami in trade discussions. The Heat weren't very interested, but it was clear Butler's agent was taking calls. His agent, Bernie Lee, actually tried to counter a post by Shams Charania on X, formerly Twitter, regarding the superstar's trade status, leaking information that Bernie figured could be harmful to his client, avoiding getting fines and affecting his trade leverage with the Heat. Up to this point, Jimmy has always stated that he wanted to stay with the Heat, but the underground rumblings were not doing him any favors. As this season got underway, trade talks kept heating up regarding Butler to the point where we'd see Jimmy with different colored hairstyles, presumably representing teams he might be interested in joining. This included the Warriors, Suns, Mavericks, and even the Kings. All teams that would have similar weather to Miami and, more importantly, compete for a championship with other superstars. Things came to a head when the Heat, seemingly uninterested in getting Butler the help he needed, were also not interested in paying him the salary he feels he deserves for carrying the team. He was eligible for a $113 million extension this summer, something the team declined to offer him. Unfortunately for him, his lack of presence in the regular season for multiple reasons, not to mention his age, has Miami thinking twice about tying up their salary in a player that might no longer give them the value they're looking for. At this point, it became Butler's belief that he wasn't going to get paid and he wouldn't get to compete for a championship, so therefore, a trade was going to be necessary. Butler made it clear he wanted to be traded without saying so directly, which became somewhat of a standoff as the Heat were not interested in trading him. This, of course, didn't sit well with Butler, who started off the season averaging 18.5 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 5 assists his first 20 games this season. For context, Jimmy averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists last season while shooting over 41% from 3. On top of not starting off the season great, a comment was made that changed everything. After losing to the Pacers, Jimmy Buckets stated,
"I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball. And wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. But I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court. But I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop. I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that. Can you get your joy back here on the court? Probably not."
This clearly angered Pat Riley, who immediately decided to suspend Jimmy Butler for 7 games, quickly escalating the already volatile situation. Heat management cited actions by Jimmy and his agent as reasons for the suspension and followed up that they will start listening to trade offers. The Heat put out a statement saying, "Through his actions and statements, he has shown he no longer wants to be a part of this team. Jimmy Butler and his representative have indicated that they wish to be traded. Therefore, we will listen to offers." The National Basketball Players Association immediately filed a grievance on behalf of Butler, as this suspension would cost Jimmy over $336,000 per game. That's not likely to get resolved anytime soon, and it could be a year before Jimmy recoups any of his lost income. Jimmy then directly requested a trade out of Miami and after returning from his 7-game suspension, admitted to not playing his hardest. It didn't take long for Jimmy to hit back at Pat Riley when he missed his flight to the team's road trip, further exacerbating the situation. The Heat reacted quickly, suspending Jimmy for another 2 games. So far, this is costing Jimmy close to $2.5 million in losses due to suspensions. The team cited continued actions detrimental to the team as reasons for the suspension. Before Jimmy returned, a source close to the team said, "I don't know how he can come back to this locker room." Another said, "We don't want him back." It looks like a done deal for Jimmy. He's definitely gone from Miami. At this point, he's only taking a few shots a game and playing as if he's completely uninterested. While we likely won't hear him shouting at the executives, his actions speak for themselves. So, what is uncertain is where he goes from here. Does he end up with Phoenix to play alongside Kevin Durant? That is going to be difficult considering they'd have to part ways with Bradley Beal to make room, and Beal has a no-trade clause that would have to be worked out or agreed to by Beal in order to get him traded. The Suns started making a move by benching Beal, who is not exactly a good fit in Phoenix next to Devin Booker. Not sure whose bright idea it was, however, if Jimmy is able to make it to Phoenix, they automatically become a contender. The other option is the Dallas Mavericks, and putting Jimmy next to Luka, Kyrie, and a warm Klay Thompson could be really troublesome. The Mavs made the finals without Klay Thompson last season, so acquiring Jimmy Butler and getting either player at anywhere near what they've shown they can do in recent years would put them over the top. Even if Klay is unproductive, a trio of Kyrie, Luka, and Butler will likely give Boston a 7-game series at least. Butler to the Kings would be interesting. I don't see the Kings doing as well as the other teams I've mentioned, considering they're having enough problems fitting DeMar DeRozan. Their head coach Mike Brown got fired and they're trying to find an identity. If they move the right pieces and pair Butler with Fox and Sabonis, they could potentially make some noise if they manage to keep their shooters. I would think they would try to move DeMar DeRozan in such a deal. And lastly, the Golden State Warriors. Miami would likely want more than the Warriors are able to send for Butler. Miami would most definitely request Jonathan Kuminga, at least one of Wiggins or Draymond Green, Guy Santos, pods, and picks in order to make it work. The Warriors would likely get Butler and a bunch of roster filler in return. The Warriors would do well to try to get Kel'el Ware in a trade, as he's an extremely talented player that could see the floor. Considering what the Heat are trying to do with Hero and Bam, however, getting Ware could be a tough buy. They might have to settle for Jovic and maybe a bunch of players that don't really see the floor in a Heat jersey. This helps the Warriors to consolidate their roster. However, it's doubtful they would be able to win a championship with Curry, Butler, and Draymond if he isn't involved in the trade, and whomever else is on the roster, as they will still need shooting unless they involve Duncan in the trade somehow. At that point, if they'd make a move for a player like Vooch, you'd see a starting lineup of Curry, Robinson, Butler, Green, Vooch, which could probably compete this season and maybe even next. The latest, according to Brian Windhorst, is that the Heat have fielded some offers, but no team has so far been able to give Miami what they're looking for. This includes players who can help now, young talent, draft capital, and salary that expires by the summer of 2026, the same time that Jimmy would have hit free agency. Let me know what you guys think. Where do you have Butler going, and why do you think it makes sense for him to go to Golden State? I'm only kidding. Let me know why you think he'd go to any of the teams I mentioned above, or even anywhere else. Post your thoughts in the comments below. Before that, however, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swish!